feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?
Peace, everyone. Peace. Again, my name is Jamar Jabari, and welcome to another episode of the Jabari Vok podcast. I'm streamed every single where. So if they ever try to get rid of me on YouTube or any other platforms like Facebook, you can catch it anywhere. Just put in Jabari Vok podcast, and you can catch these episodes. I'm very, very happy about the journey on all these episodes and the growth and the feedback that I've been receiving from people. We're always keeping it music, politics, and culture on this podcast. And again, this is another related segment that we're going to get into where we talk about Peru. The last time we spoke with Dillinger Wilder, he was a great comrade out in Florida that talked about the importance of standing in solidarity with the working class in Peru and also spreading awareness of what happened to their previous president, Castillo. And we are going to talk about that and also talk about the struggle that the working class is going through in Peru. And I also want to focus on, because of it is Women's History Month, very, very important to center the struggle of what women go through. Thomas Sankara has spoke about, without the liberation of women, and this is a paraphrase, I can get the actual quote, but he talked about that there is no true liberation without women's struggle. You have to stand in solidarity, and men, you need to shut the fuck up and also listen, and then learn to advocate for women instead of this red pill nonsense that I see that's going on in the Americas. Without further ado, though, I want to get into my special guest, Claude O'Brien. And if I said your name incorrectly, I am so sorry.
All good. It's pronounced Clau, or it's short for Claudia.
Okay, so Clau. I apologize.
No, all good. Thank you. How's it going, Jamar?
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out to come on to the show. She is always in the field. Can you talk about the work that you do? You are a journalist, right?
Yeah. So I'm an organizer with Black Alliance for Peace in the Haiti Americas team. I'm also Peruvian, and I was born here in Lima. And when I was 6 in 92, we moved to the States, to New Jersey, during the Fujimori dictatorship, after there was a massacre in Barrios Altos, which is where I'm from. So I came back the day before the general strike started here on January 4th. And, again, like I said, I'm an organizer, and also, have connections with like independent and, indie press in the States and elsewhere. So I figured it makes sense that, and people on the ground have been asking that there be independent alternative press, because the press here is fully bought out. Right. Daily, they bombard the airwaves with just horrible lies, saying that everyone here is terrorist, and that there is literally an invasion of Lima, meaning that the people from other places of Peru are like immigrants in their own country. That is the level of just complete inequality and discrimination that we've really been seeing, not just since the coup of Castillo, but really since the second round of elections, where
Right.
I mean, I guess really before, in the first round of elections, we see that someone that comes from Cajamarca, one of the northern provinces, is a son of illiterate campesinos, is a rondero himself, teacher and union leader, could never ascend to the presidency in Lima,
Right.
and so the same outrage and hatred really that they had towards Castillo during this presidency, during the year and a half that he was not allowed to even govern, really. We see that now reflected in how they treat protesters and people that are just coming out into the streets to demand that our vote actually just be respected.
Right.
So yeah, I really just came here to be with my family. Also, I have a lot of family here. But yeah, now have been organizing and reporting and documenting the struggle.
Thank you. And the uprising is still continuing, and I am so disappointed, which I shouldn't be surprised, in the mainstream Western media on how they ignore this, and they just continue to put the attention on Ukraine 24/7 when there are other struggles that they can bring attention to, which I feel that can educate the American community, especially because a lot of people, and I'm not trying to say that all Americans think this way, but when I get into a conversation with the working class, which is always important, there's a lot of them that assume that the only issue is that Mexico is the problem and that there's Mexicans 24/7 that are coming to the border. It's as if they see that whole entire part of South America as being a Mexico country in a way, and when there's multiple countries and multiple different people from different backgrounds and different cultures and tribes, just like how Africa is viewed as one country as well too, when it's a goddamn continent of about
Yeah.
54 nations. But it's
Right.
it's kind of very sad how bad the disconnect is, because you have to automatically go through the educational process first and then address why the immigration issue is an issue. In fact, when we have a CIA intelligence that have toppled over 50 uh, countries within Latin America, and this is one of these situations that we're seeing here, which I would not be surprised. But other
Yeah.
than that, the uprising in Peru, you were covering what happened to the Y Amara, and am I saying that correctly? I want to make sure I
Uh,
respect the names.
Aymara.
Aymara and the
Yeah.
Kachi. Let me
Aymara
just
and
put that right
Quechua.
there. There we go.
Yes.
Katra.
There you
Need to
go.
work on my Spanish
Quechua.
and everything.
So these are two different two different indigenous groups
Mhm.
throughout the Andes. I mean, just in Peru alone, we have well over almost 100 different indigenous groups and languages. The
Right.
majority coming from the Amazons, but Aymara and
Right.
Quechua are probably the bigger groups, indigenous groups in the Andes, the mountain ranges.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So it's kind of like because my I'm learning about my indigenous side when we are Halawa Saponi and also um Nataway and Maharan tribe, what is in the modern day what the colonizers called the state of Virginia, in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we always say that our cousins are in Latin America. We consider our cousins in Latin America, that they have the right to come here and they should be let in, and which is a very very big part of solidarity and showing how deep the indigenous struggle is.
Absolutely, absolutely, and definitely just like historically. pre-European contact, there was contact between the Americas.
Right.
Many indigenous tribes from the south. So we call it eagle and condor, right? So the bald eagle in the U.S. and in South
Right.
America is the condor. So we often talk about it, refer to it as del águila al condor. So we've always had contact with each other. There were delegations that would go to the Sioux Confederacy meetings, so we didn't colonize each other, which is the difference, right? But there was
Right.
definitely contact.
Right. And that's something that needs to be taught here in the States, because there's such a disconnect. They even think that these tribes don't exist anymore. A lot of people that
Absolutely.
are but
Yeah.
so what is the situation now on ground, especially with tribal people, which it's definitely worse
Yeah.
compared to what happens with the state gets involved with massacring indigenous people, for listeners to understand.
Yeah. So the other day was on the 7th was the 3-month anniversary of the coup. So many, I would say thousands of people from campesinos, from all the other regions, the 25 regions in Peru, that came in pretty much since the start and have been coming in since the coup started on December 7th, organizing, having mobilizations every day, speak outs, vigils, what have you. And yeah, there has not been a day that there have not been mobilizations in protest against the massacres. Right now and these are low estimates, right? Honestly, at this point, we've lost count.
Right.
But at least 85 deaths in those 3 months, close to 1,000, maybe more at this point, severely injured. Close to 1,000 disappeared that are likely actually, already massacred. It is predominantly happening in the provinces and especially in the south. Puno, which is the southernmost region and it borders Bolivia, had the bloodiest day so far of the coup was January 9th in Puno, where 18 people were massacred in one day. It was a bloodbath, and every region, honestly, can tell you a different story of a different bloodbath.
So this is basically a it's not just one area like Lima. This is it happening in the entire region of Peru.
Yeah. So in Lima, obviously, it's less concentrated in Lima. There's fewer people that are at, and that's because Lima is the capital, right? This is where the bourgeoisie lives. This is where the ruling class lives. This is also where probably some of the poorest residents in Peru live in the barrios, right?
Right.
Something a lot of the provincianos, the compañeros from provincia say is that, at least we're able to grow our food, Like I see some people in the barrios that have nothing. And live in what are shanty towns still. And so yeah, the inequality here has reached boiling points, and these 3 months, that's something that everyone on the ground can tell you is we've woken up, right? This is not something that just started a year and a half ago when Castillo was elected. This is the last 6 presidents have been overthrown by this coup Congress that's dominated by the right wing and the hard right. Even before that, we still have the 93 Constitution, which was rammed through during the Fujimori dictatorship, which by law privatizes all of our resources. And the reason this coup happened now is that because a lot of the contracts, the legal contracts for all of our resources are due to expire later this year, right? So what the hard right needed to happen was oust a popularly elected president that was actually talking about, if not even full nationalization, but at least state control of our industries, right? It had to happen. They had to, coup the president. And of course, the U.S. certainly Lisa Kenna, the U.S. ambassador to Peru, who's former CIA, right, and was
Of
basically one
course.
of Pompeo's like top, advisors. Um, she
I
met with
hate
the
Pompeo.
Minister of Defense. Yeah. She met with the Minister of Defense, but right, like, okay, elected during Trump, and was Pompeo's prime minister, or whatever advisor, but still under the Biden regime, right? Like it's the
Right.
same, whatever. We know it's the same. The ruling class in extravagance in the U.S. has two parties.
Yep.
But so similar here, right? There's actually many liberal, hard right parties that literally are what we consider coup plotters, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Minister of Defense met with Lisa Kenna the day before, accepted luggages, I'm sure, U.S. dollars that are now being used to pay police and people in the armed forces bonuses up to 3 months, 4 months for massacring, for killing our people. Lisa Kenna also met with Dina Boluarte, who's the coup leader, maybe a couple days before the coup happened. So of course, the U.S. We understand the U.S. is behind this. Many of the mobilizations, just yesterday or maybe now 2 days ago, the Southcom General Commander Laura Richardson at a congressional hearing was talking about just exactly how rich in resources our region is, meaning Latin America, right? I guess the U.S. still considers front yard, backyard, doesn't matter. The Monroe Doctrine is alive and well, right? 200 years later, actually in December, it'll be the 200-year anniversary of this murderous, regime of the Monroe Doctrine that continues. And right now we're seeing the people of the Andes suffer the consequences as per usual.
And it's sad that this is what they show on TV. They don't want to show the murders and the killings and the national strike and how people are literally like opposing their government. Last month they literally had this puppet. Will we call her a dictator? Is that a good term to call her?
She's a dictator, yeah.
Yes.
She here on the ground, she's known as, people don't call her president because she's not. No one elected her to be president. She sold out the people.
Right.
Boasted that she's an indigenous, and continues to do so, that she's an indigenous woman from the provinces.
Wow, way to just
no one, no, literally. So you're massacring your own people is what you're saying.
Right.
Right, but yeah, people here call her usurpadora,
right.
Because she's not. No one elected her to be president. No one elected her to govern for the hard right. She's puppet of the Fujimorista, Montesinisto, the U.S. She is going to pay what she has done, and not just her, right? Everyone politically, and from every rank needed. Will face justice.
Yeah, she literally she did a press conference and she was saying that everything is fine. Everything is okay.
Yeah.
That's what we heard.
That. Yeah.
Like, excuse me. No, it's not, lady. And just like what happened to that person in Bolivia, it's going to happen to you too.
Exactly.
And it's just a matter of time.
Yeah. I think Ginny Ananias just got some like a certificate in sewing or something, so she can do the same thing.
Here's the thing, like I love how the smoke and mirrors, and I speak to people personally about this so they could get a full understanding of what's happening, and it's very important to have these conversations because the Western media will not show you the actual truth. Yeah. And so I know that people get frustrated, just always explaining what's going on, but we got to have that patience, people that are listening, to have that conversation with people that don't know, because there's a lot of solidarity that could come out and a lot of good things and awareness that could come out of it. And if they don't listen, then, just don't but give them time. It's like Malcolm X said, there was a time that you didn't know what you know now. So patience is a
Yeah,
very important thing.
just gotta keep
When you say
organizing.
yes, got to keep on damn organizing. And when you said that she's about to, reap what she sowed, are you seeing that even through the midst of the repression, that there is a strong chance for Juan Castillo to come back, or were we looking like a situation in Bolivia where they elected a different president besides Evo Morales coming back?
Right. Yeah, well, so Pedro Castillo was
Oh,
just
I'm sorry, I said
given
Juan.
three. Oh, good. Pedro Castillo was just given 3 years as a like sentenced to 3 years
Hmm.
for supposed right treason and whatever, which would run out the time that he's supposed to be in presidency. His administration is supposed to be from 2021 to 2026.
Okay.
Right. So they have him as a political prisoner. This is the lawfare we have seen since day one of his administration from Peru is a lawfare that was similar that happened with Dilma Rousseff and then eventually Lula. What's happening now
Hmm.
in Argentina, right?
Hmm.
So I definitely say this as organizers, as people on the revolutionary left. That the hard right is very international. They coordinate. They literally send people to each other's places when things are hot, right? So I think that that's something that we should acknowledge and learn to struggle with, right? Like if they're
Right.
there, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that I'm not. It's tough. It's tough to tell right now if he
Hmm.
will actually, if this dictatorship will fall, and exactly at what point. I mean, I think definitely when certain, one thing is for certain is that people will be out in the streets every day, regardless. And
Right.
the primary demand of the people is the liberty and restitution of our president, right? Everything else will follow, right?
Hmm.
Meaning, because the vacancy, with the impeachment, was not done in a legal manner, it's actually null and void, right? So in
Right.
within their own dictatorial constitution, you need 104 votes to formally impeach someone. There's a couple other stipulations, including debate time and having a lawyer present. All of these things didn't happen, right? They got to 101 votes. They still impeached him. They, and immediately arrested him as he was going. Yeah, all of this was actually done illegally, even according to their own laws. And multiple things have happened, right? Obviously, a dictatorship isn't even going to follow its own laws.
Right.
We see, right, the cops can flagrantly just in the U.S. can flagrantly just their laws don't matter to them, right? So it's very similar here. Their laws don't matter to them.
And they
Because
get
they think
mad
they're above the
when
law.
you remind them. They get mad
Yeah,
when you remind
exactly.
them.
Exactly. It's like, yo, even under your constitution, you didn't do this right. And then,
Right.
they'll just say, like, well, you're a terrorist. Okay, well, you
Yeah.
can't even argue with
Jesus.
that.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think it's very, very important to give that cross, that so people can understand the comparisons. And you mentioned the budget as well too, that they are giving out to continue this repression. And it's the same
Yeah.
type of budget, if even though it's probably smaller than Ukraine, but it's the same type of money that they give out in Ukraine too, to keep the police force going, to even give them
Right.
health care. Um,
Yeah.
which is insane that they could give universal health care to countries they want to destroy so
Yeah.
they can make $1, but they can't give universal
Yeah.
health care to their own American
Yeah.
citizens. It's
Well,
counterstanding the investment they give.
yes. Yes. And also they're ramming through all of the austerity, like, wishes that they've had for the past 3 decades, right? So just, I guess this miss probably a little under a month ago, a few weeks ago, they raised the age of retirement from 65 to 75.
Mm.
right?
Wow.
Just yesterday or a couple days ago, they now is a decree under Congress that the state is authorized to manage any press, right? So like independent press and even some of the press here that at first and during Castillo's presidency and administration was were the liberals that were saying like, oh, he's a dictator, he's like Maduro, whatever. Now they see the consequences of what
Right.
pandering to the right means, and they've now they've gone to like actually reporting on the crimes of the state and everything. One of the reporters for La República in Ilave was documenting as soldiers that had been given commands by their superiors to cross a river in Ilave that you can't, even the most trained swimmer could not do that, right? So six soldiers died, and many of them were rescued by their own parents, by the same people that are that are organizing, that are involved, right? So there's definitely a sentiment on the ground, especially in provincias, that the sons of the people are the ones that are in the military in order to massacre the people. So now there is starting to be a wave of military that are resigning and joining forces with the people. We hope that spreads.
That's absolutely great. And I really do hope that spreads too, because it that's some things I think about as well. I'm just, when you look at how these dictatorships go, I think about, I'm like, aren't you related to any of these people that you're like being ordered to repress? Like I really don't think that they are protecting their families while their children are out there actively killing people. But then I also look at how there's a disconnect, because with in the Israel situation, those are actually just Zionist
Right.
Israelis that are repressing
Settlers.
Palestinians. Yeah. So just seeing this as being a very personal thing with Peru, just like how it's very personal with Ukraine, is just very mind-boggling that this can happen when it's really that
Mhm.
close.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
um Also, last question, because I see we're almost on time. So where can people find your work? I have the Twitter handles here as well too. Where else can people find your work? And is there anything other plugins that people should listen to as well, so they can stay updated with Peru?
Yeah, so you can follow my work on Twitter. I've been posting a lot, mostly like the daily marches that I've been going to and documenting, and some interviews. I write. I've also been writing weekly updates for Black Agenda Report, so you can catch me there in written form. I have Patreon also. You can catch me there. Everything is made public because like I said, all this information. The goal is that this is evidence once that this eventually either goes to international human rights courts, or once we overturn the coup and then there's actual justice
Hmm.
for the massacres. This is all evidence. So my Patreon is made fully public, but if anyone would like to support, that would be great.
I'll make sure the
For
link is
it's
below.
Thank you. It's Clau Brian Moscoso.
Okay.
And yeah, Black Alliance for Peace, we always have statements out. And next month, we'll be launching our Zone of Peace campaign from the Caribbean and DC. So yeah, just make sure to stay tuned.
So
Right.
there was, and I have to recall, let me pull them up, but there was this candidate for the FIU, Florida International University, what do you might call it, Senate, right? Like the student Senate. And he had
Right.
spoken about basically solidarity with Cuba. His name is Daniel Salub Sid. And Otaola, who's this Gusano, he just went off and targeted him. But yesterday, Daniel won. The progressive candidate won.
Oh,
Somebody
wow.
the record in solidarity with Cuba. So in reality, the Gusanos, they're a minority, but they're a loud minority. We just got to get the silent majority to speak up. And we have to show it. A lot of reactionaries use the term silent minority, and they intend to keep them silent, right? Because they're the voice of the silent minority.
Right.
But in reality, we need the majority to speak up just a bit, because if they all speak just a bit, you pretty much drown out the loud minority, the obnoxious minority.
Right. So basically, which I thought, in Florida that the Grisanos had a huge following, because that's what they always talk about. The Republican Cubans, they are always, they got political power there. They get a say of what's going on. But I don't live in Florida, so
Right.
I've always thought that they had a strong majority there. But it's good to hear that there are a lot of Cuban population that actually know what's going on more, and it's just that they're quiet. Like, it reminds me of like Vietnamese people that come here that are quiet about the communism in North Vietnam, but when you talk to them, they're like, yeah, I support socialism by doing all this stuff, but they don't really like say it out loud.
That's the things that the reactionary Vietnamese complain about, right? Because they're like,
Right.
our young people that fight for human rights, they only fight for domestic human rights, that is to say, in the United States. They want them to fight for human rights in Vietnam, but a lot of these young Vietnamese Americans are like, pause. Like, the only person that violated human rights out here was the United States. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, communism. So, one interesting data point, if you will, is that more Cuban Americans in Florida voted for Bernie Sanders than for Joe Biden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the MAGA Gusanos, if you will, they're going to vote for whoever the fuck's running for as a Republican, right? Whether it's Marco Rubio or Charlie Crist. They're party hacks. They're like partisans. They're never going to vote outside of the Republican Party, right? They wouldn't vote for a libertarian, if you will, right? Or any form of right populist that doesn't have an R next to their name. But they're a minority. The Cuban population, especially the ones who just got here, who are not U.S. citizens, they recognize a lot of nuances. And the Gusanos, like the older Gusanos, they hate that because they try to create stories.
Yeah.
And then the guy they're talking to is like, bro, I was there like 2 months ago. What are you talking about? More about Cuba than you do. Like, what are you talking about? And not only that one of the major points of the historical Gusanos, if you will, is that they want to get their land back, right? They want to get their buildings back, their businesses, their industry back. And the Cubans who come here now, even the ones who are Gusanos, right? They're poor as fuck. They're not gonna get shit. If socialism were to fall in Cuba right now, they would be homeless. Yeah. They would be in the worst situation. Straight
Seriously.
up. So in a way, it's like they're like, yeah, well, I don't know, like Otaola, all the paid Gusanos, they have no intention in going back to Cuba. They have no intention in doing anything with Cuba other than getting paid, right? They're the ultimate right-wing grifters,
right?
Because in a way, it's like they, especially those that oppose us, right? They want to say, or they want to portray that they're against our caravan, right? Like, oh, like they protest our car caravan, so they must be against it, so they must want us to not have a car caravan anymore. But then where's the paychecks going to come from? Because they don't work. Yo, those people, the Gusanos, I swear to you, they don't work.
They all get paid? Oh,
they
man.
Work. They don't like to work. With violence, they're not going to work. So they're like the I would say the least productive elements in society, including in Miami. And I could drop 1,000 facts about the Marielitos. I don't know if you heard about the Marielitos. The Miami Marielito is an insult, right? Because it refers to the Mariel boat lift, in which Cuba allowed many people that wanted to leave Cuba, thousands of people that wanted to leave Cuba. All they had to do was get picked up by a family member in the Mariel port. But when that happened, the Cuban government told the lumpen elements, listen, if you want to leave Cuba, leave Cuba. And they left Cuba. And crime rose in Miami-Dade County, I think this was in 1980, by 500%.
Wow.
Like, it was crazy. Like, the amount of thievery, narco trafficking, kidnapping, murder, aggravated assault, all these crimes. And so in Miami, if you call someone a Marielito, you're basically calling them a thug or a common crook. And that's it. Somebody who got lucky, if you will, and got to go to Miami.
Wow.
And so, it's a
So
long.
is this the story where people were saying that what Fidel basically kicked out all the criminals? Like, I remember hearing that they were like, oh, he took all the drug dealers and kicked them out, and then they started that pretext on Scarface, where Scarface was
right.
one of the motherfuckers that got kicked out.
Well, they weren't kicked out as so much as they were allowed to leave, and they wanted to leave, right? Because they're like, look, you can be in a jail cell or you can be in Miami, and in their mindset, they're like, oh, of course I'm gonna go to Miami, man. What are you talking about? You know that Batista's granddaughter, I think I mentioned this before, right? Batista's granddaughter lives under a bridge in downtown Miami.
Yeah, like, I heard that. Yeah,
like that shit is crazy. So the Gusanos today, the ones that are like young, let's say they're millennial Gusanos, they really have no intention in going back to Cuba or having a life there. They're just grifting. They're literally grifters. They're like, I mean, without being controversial, right? Like, man, all right, fuck it. I'm gonna offend some of your audience. I don't know, like Breaking Points or Cal Kalinske, and that's not to say that they're the worst of the worst, but you know, like, you know, they're not altruistic, and they're certainly, how can I put it? They certainly are not for any real solution, right?
I agree, Kyle. If you ever hear this, I agree with everything that my boy Ortiz is saying.
Shit is crazy. Now, and some of them are okay. Like, look, I'll give you an example without getting too controversial.
Right.
What's her name? Like, okay, so check this out. Brianna Joy Gray, right?
Yeah.
I think she's pretty cool. I think she has a lot of cool opinions, right? I think she's pretty cool. But she had an interview with Norman Finkelstein, right? The anti-Zionist author.
Yeah.
Or at least the author that is critical of apartheid in Israel. Mm-hmm. You know, his family, they went through the Holocaust, through the Auschwitz. Terrible. And, you know, and his family were communists, like Marxist Leninists, like old school MLs, right?
My people.
And, yeah. And then he said, look, my criticism of you, right, of Brianna Joy Gray, he said it's like parliamentarian cretinism, right? Like I like Brianna Joy Gray's opinions in general. I think she's pretty cool, but a lot of her energy is spent on inside baseball in Congress, where it matters, right? Like, yes, we shouldn't be ignorant to what's going on there because laws are made and all that. Yeah, but that's not really where the cutting edge of politics is in America.
Yeah, that's just social democrat, basically. That's all that is.
Right. I feel like she's, you know, developing, right? Like, I'm not gonna write her off. I mean, you know, people have their paths, their journeys. I found that a long time ago that people have their journeys, and sometimes you can learn from that journey yourself, right? And humble yourself. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. I wish Brianna Joy Gray the best, but not.
Yeah, I mean, his theory on just social democracy, it has so many holes, and it's like, why not just say socialism? Like, I feel like they just don't want to be a part of the crowd, but I feel like they kind of know that we're right, but they just don't want to say it.
It's hard because we don't, and I'll say this: if the revolutionaries, if the Marxist-Leninists, if the patriots, if you will, if we can present an alternative, we might get a lot of those folks. Right? Because to them, it's like, well, you know, you have your rhetoric and your theory and whatever, but is that enough for me? You know what I'm saying? To them, it's like, and I don't blame them, because to a lot of people, it's like that too. It's we need a plan of action, right? We need you to tell me what the fuck we're gonna do about this.
Right.
And yeah, so that's, and it's funny because then as time goes by, eventually the opposition will be like, oh, you guys are authoritarian because it's all about the ideas that you put forward. Well, yeah, because the people were waiting for those ideas, right? And it wasn't because we put a gun on everybody's head and say, you gotta believe what I said. No, it was just basically these were the actual alternatives put forward that people worked on that actually came to fruition, as opposed to the high ideals of liberalism.
It's exactly what Lenin had to do. You know, when the second revolution happened in the USSR, well, what was becoming the USSR, it was it was in those turning points,
like Soviet Russia, or like the provisional
in between.
government?
Yeah, when they toppled the Tsar, and then the second revolution happened, where the Soviets had to, basically Lenin had to show the people that this can work, because they were trying to see what the new system will be. I forgot who it was. I think it was like the Social Democrats, the Mensheviks or something. I got to go back into my readings. But they were like, let's try it out. Let's see if this is the right way. And he had to literally, give them offer them a better platform for them to work on. And it became successful. The Bolsheviks became the vanguard party. But unfortunately, he died so quick. So they didn't have a guidance like Mao and Fidel was able to do. Lenin died too soon. So but I go in too fast with that. But yeah, that's basically what we need to do. We need someone like a Lenin that is principled and strong enough to be able to take this vision, which people thought Bernie Sanders was, but we all knew he wasn't. We need someone like that could grasp the people.
Yep, it's a lot of, like, how can I put it? We are in a place where we have to be strategic, right? So for example, I do think that we need to put forward ideas. It would be it's not, I don't know if it's possible or not, right? This is where I veer into ideals.
Mm-hmm.
It would be ideal if people could take up a political line and a practice as a general movement that is not so much pinned to an individual. And the reason why is this. And again, this is ideal. It might be impossible. It might not ever happen because it's impossible, maybe. But the thing is that the imperialists, the social, the social thinking like of the provisional government, the social democrats, the reactionaries, the opportunists, all sorts of petty bourgeois ideologists as well, they would all attack this person.
Oh yeah.
Remember that MLK has a holiday after him, right? Who is known throughout the world, was the most hated man in America the year that he died.
Right. He was a strong socialist.
Yeah, he was very strong. Look at Tavis Smiley's Death of a King. It's a great book about the last year of his life. Bro, the man was under attack every day.
Every day.
He did not let up. That year was the year in hell. And so maybe it is bound to happen, right? Maybe it is very idealist to hope that we can not have a martyr. But if we need to, I guess somebody will. And I hope that person, is venerated as they should be for the sacrifice. MLK could have lived his whole life. After the Montgomery bus boycott, he could have lived his life in comfort. He was offered a position to be a minister in London. He could have just been like, all right, y'all, peace.
Yep.
Malcolm X could have been like, all right, y'all, peace. I'm gonna move to the Muslim world, and the end, right? So definitely hats off to all of them.
Yeah, and when you look at the Poor People's Campaign, Jesus, what that would have done if he was still alive. That was literally a groundbreaking, like the gravel was set for a revolution there. It was ready. I feel like that was the height, and they killed him. And they knew they had to kill that, and that killed the momentum like crazy. I mean, we do have a new Poor People's Campaign now, but sadly the momentum isn't as strong as what Martin Luther King's Poor People's Campaign was. It was life changing, and it got a lot of attention. And the elements were there. You had Kennedy there too, and you know, I just wish like there was an alternate universe that we could just peek in and see what America would have been if the Poor People's Campaign was fully successful with the leadership of Martin Luther King.
All right. Well, we don't have an alternative universe, and as a science teacher, as I like to comment this as well. But we do have a future world, right, that we're building, and that we can hopefully see a lot of these victories in. You know who I like in many ways, but I'm open to criticisms of this person, and I personally don't share their ideas in full as a Marxist-Leninist, right? And also, Marxist-Leninists should not only support Marxist-Leninism, limiting.
We kind of do though in ways, but
yeah, I get it. But you gotta be practical. My mom, she's not a Marxist-Leninist, but she's awesome, right? My neighbors are pretty cool. They help me out and shit. So and they're not MLs. But you know who I think is pretty cool? And again, might be that in the next few years, this person turns out to be like a traitor, the lowest scum of the earth. But as of right now, who I think is pretty cool is Shama Sawant, who is a member of the city council in Seattle. She's a member of Socialist Alternative. I'm not a Trotskyist, right? Socialist Alternative is a Trotskyist group.
Yeah.
Who my only experience with them has been in Gainesville, Florida, and they are, at least in my experience, they've been an all right group of people. I know that there's leftists in Gainesville that hate them for some reason, which I don't know. But again, maybe it is true or not. I don't know, right? But I think that Shama Sawant has been able to pull a good mass of people in Seattle to fight for a lot of very positive things, and she's getting a bigger profile. She was the one that was key in getting the first city in the whole country to pass a $15 minimum wage. So I think that somebody like that throughout the future could have that sort of not only clout, because any asshole with an IG and some form of gimmick can get clout, especially if you're doing publicity stunts, but somebody who has the moral authority, like not Fidel, like Raúl said and Che said about Fidel. Fidel was the first one to jump in the Grandma, the first one to storm the Moncada, the first one to jump in a tank during the Bay of Pigs.
Right.
He's the only one that has the moral authority to ask the people anything in the name of the revolution. So we need somebody who really does have that ability to say, listen, guys, I need you to give 10% of your money for this campaign, because guess what? In the future, it'll be to your benefit, or even immediately, right? You could say to every revolutionary, I'm in Florida, so I have to speak in that context. Every revolutionary in Florida, I need you to fundraise $1,000 in order to help a new nascent red union, to make sure that they have the money to strike and to do all their political activities.
Right.
And if people believe it, bro, they'll fucking sell lemonade. They'll sell stuff at the thrift store or at the pawn shop, whatever. They'll save money. They'll look in their couch and they'll get $1,000 real quick, but it's all about having that authority to make that call.
Yeah, I see that in the Brian Beckers of the world, the Gloria La Rivas of the world, who actually knew Fidel and all the shit that she did. And I'm going to look into that person, because we actually did some work with Socialist Resurgence. I mean, we do differ in our perspectives of what's happening in the Ukraine and everything, but still, though, like, it's always good to organize on issues that you agree with. There's always going to be that division, especially when someone's a Trotskyist and you're a Marxist, a Leninist, and then we see a few Stalinist people around. But if we can just all come together on these issues.
Hopefully. I mean, look, if Brian Becker's mentor, Gloria La Riva's mentor, Sam Morrissey, he had a lot of following himself. He's met Fidel, he's met Kim Il-sung. He's written some interesting documents, right, on global class war. So and even if I don't agree with Sam Marcy on all these things, and certainly don't
Right.
agree with some things, I can attest to the fact that this person's committed, and this person, has some sense, not only some sense but vision, and that if they're calling for something to be done, it's actually like something that makes sense, and that even if it's wrong, it's in the right direction, right? For example, it was, let's see who, who could do this. Okay, again, not a Marxist-Leninist, not even a colonized person, right? Which Shama someone's Indian and so on.
Mhm.
Jimmy Dore, Jimmy Dore,
Interesting.
like an everyday kind of man, even though he's got money nowadays.
Yeah.
He calls himself a pothead comedian, right? And he's funny, laugh, but he does have a certain following,
Oh man, he's big right now.
he's getting big. If only,
Yeah.
but I wish that, because now he says, "Oh, I might run for president." He flirts with it. I
Yeah.
really wish that instead of flirting with running for president, he would concretely launch a campaign for something useful, whether
Right.
it's Palestine, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's people, poor people's campaign. Just launch something useful, instead of and that's kind of like where again, like maybe he isn't the guy with the moral authority, right? Because instead of flirting with, "Oh, I might be president, door 24, whatever," bro, talk about something practical, and that
Yeah.
that might. And I do respect a lot of his views, but to respect his person, right? That's a different conversation, because it's when the going is good, it's easy to be radical and blah 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 and whatever, right? You're out here making money, you're getting fame, you're chilling, bro. You good. But when people don't listen to you, you're losing money. When you're losing friends,
Right.
it's a different situation.
Yeah, and I want to clip this because Jimmy Dore has liked a few of my posts, so I want to clip this and see if he could hear from us about how this could be a good idea to build momentum to actually bring in a really good cause with your hype, man. Because he's on fire. He's literally on fire. Like,
I like him.
no
Look,
one-
I watch him. I like him. Listen, Jimmy. I'm an immigrant public school teacher based out of Florida. I watch your shit like almost every day. I may not agree with everything you say, right? There's a couple of things I was like, bro, pause. I'm not gonna say what it is. Let's just say it was about a foolhardy young man that committed, in my view, murder. We'll leave it there. But I think that you're right on a lot of other shit, and so I hope that you can put your prestige, if you will, your following, if you will, to different useful things. One of those things, I have to say it, is solidarity with Cuba to end the embargo on the people of Cuba.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's get
I
into
love
Peru.
that he covered Peru too. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we were just about Peru. Yeah. Because, dude, I gotta watch that video. Actually, I have it clipped of what he said about Peru. I haven't watched it yet, but so I spoke to Claudia O'Brien, I believe that's her. I'm sorry, Claudia, if I said your last name incorrectly. She's one of the journalists from the Black Alliance.
Oh, nice. For peace.
Yep, for peace, Black for Peace Alliance.
Yeah.
Shout out to Blacks for Peace Alliance because they're an incredible organization. She's in Peru, and we were having multiple discussions on what's going on. And one thing that came up is the secret funding that is the U.S. government giving to keep up this coup regime. And I did not know that they have literally millions of dollars just going into there to keep that regime going. But the sad part is I don't know how much money they're wasting because majority of the country doesn't even fuck with this dictator.
Right.
So
it's Democrat.
Yeah, I was going to say Democrat.
But when you say Democrat, you mean like a member of the Democratic Party, right? Not like a person who supports democracy. Yeah.
Like, what is the CIA doing now? Like, I asked her, I'm like, are we looking at someone that just like what happened in Bolivia? Like, you had like a year or two of massacring your own effing people for money, and now you in jail. Like, is this what's going to happen to her? What do you think?
Well, with Dina Boluarte, she was an opportunist from the start, like, and I think I mentioned this before. I don't know if here or somewhere else, but
in the last episode you did. Yep, the last.
Her supporters wanted Castillo to get overthrown so she could become president.
Right.
She was really a bad choice for Peru Libre. Peru Libre is gonna have to live with that decision for a while. And I say that as an affiliate member of Peru Libre. I think that Boluarte's presidency, it's like a test of strength of Fujimorismo. At this point, Fujimorismo is going all out. The General Secretary Vladimir Cerrón said it best. The biggest problem with Fujimorismo is that it wants Keiko Fujimori to be president. And it's so fucking hard that it gives up any other alternative, right? Any other like right-wing figure, any other whatever that supports. No. Like they have to make her president, which means that they have to oppose the different sectors of the far right and of the international corporations and of the capitalist, imperialist influencers. Truth be told, Fujimorismo could have the support of many more NGOs that are currently staying aloof of a lot of this stuff or are critical only in words. They could get that support, but then they go ahead and have to cape for the daughter of a dictator who herself leads a criminal organization. And so they're, in a way, they tie their own hands by their own greed. They're very similar to the Venezuelan opposition. They could unite and get a lot of gains, but that means they can't get paid. And money is the end goal of politics for these people.
Yeah.
What's the point in supporting democracy if you're not getting paid, right? Just like the grifters in Miami. What's the point if you're not getting paid? I hope that. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, you were going to say something?
No, I'm just agreeing with you. I'm like, right. It's all about money at the end of the day. Like they're not like, oh, I'm going to free my people. No, you're shooting your people and you're getting paid to do it. Like that's what's basically going on.
Exactly. Look, the Peruvian state is in a situation in which most people oppose it, but the people there's one major weakness. There's other weaknesses, but one of the major weaknesses in the Peruvian left and the revolutionary movement, the progressive or patriotic movements, is that there's a lot of division. I mean, I've been there. I've been in those rooms. I've been in those spaces, and like, it's you can have two people who have almost the same views. Like, go at it. Like if they're fighting over like the most fundamental beliefs, it's like, bro, we agree on most shit. But unfortunately, people don't want to be. A lot of people they're simply scared of organizational power because they're afraid that if you have an organization that's bigger than a group of 10 people, then that organization will become corrupt and it will betray its principles. There's an ultra-left sector, for example, that broke with Peru Libre, who says that, we don't support any political parties. We're not tied to any political parties. Nothing should be done in Congress. We should only protest. That's it. Their only strategy is that more people must die. And I guess as more people die, there's less support for the Boluarte government. We already have 70+% of Peruvians against it. Like, it's not like, like we don't need, what do we need? Like another 100 dead for 90%. Like at some point, that can be the only strategy. Right. But again, there's this huge tendency in the movement against organizational power because it's always seen almost as a mafia. I'll give you an example. So Patria Roja, who is one of the factions that broke off from the original Communist Party of Peru, they had a huge hegemony over the SUTEP, which was the national teachers union in Peru. The problem is that a lot of ultra-left forces will say, "Oh, that's the mafia of Patria Roja, the mafia." Like, what is the mafia constituted here? Well, it's that they have their members in power in the union, and they only really allow their militants to get positions of importance in the union. And so if you look at it from a petty bourgeois, meritocratic, liberal position, you're like, oh, well, no, it shouldn't be like that. It should be the best man for the job. No, asshole. It actually should be led by a political party with a political line. Even if I don't agree with their political line, I understand why the teachers union should be led by a communist political line instead of like some meritocratic technocrat. As though going to school in, again, Oxford or Columbia or Humboldt or the Polytechnic School of Paris or whatever the fuck, as though that makes you politically prepared to lead, to have political responsibilities. Look, I get it. You need to have engineers that went to school for engineering. You need to have doctors that went to medical school. Of course. But a political position of trust, as they would say in Peru, of confidence, has to do with your political commitments more so than like your schooling. Bro, I would rather have a peasant who didn't finish high school, who I know is down, who I know is committed, than having somebody who again went to I don't know, Cambridge and couldn't give two shits about the people they're making decisions over. I had this discussion with my uncle, who is also a teacher. He's a teacher in Peru. And we talked about this, right? I'm like, look, if you tell a technocrat, hey, here's the numbers, here's the budget. And because of this budget, we cannot do these things that we promise.
Right.
We can't fix this road. We can't provide this indoor plumbing because we don't have the budget. Or if we were to get the money, we would have to raise taxes, which would get us in trouble with the IMF or with the oligarchy.
Right.
So the first thing is we're going to bring some trucks every week with water, and all the people can run to the truck and fill their water, their buckets of water and go home, right?
Right.
That's good. But somebody who's been through that, somebody who grew up going with their mom and their brother with their buckets, somebody who's had to walk miles for water, somebody whose uncle died of cholera. Remember that Peru was the only country in the Western Hemisphere to have a cholera outbreak in the 20th century. You're like, no, fuck the IMF. Let me be in trouble with the IMF so that those people can get their water. That's okay. Fuck the IMF. Let them hate me. Let the oligarchy hate me. Let the people love me, though. Let the people be free, though. You know what I'm saying? And that's the difference between a technocrat who's making a numerical calculation and somebody who's making a revolution. And that's the problem that Peru faces, right? That there's a gulf between the people and the so-called technocrats, progressive, reactionary, whatever. All these technocrats who are alien to their reality. This harkens back to the era of the families that ruled Peru until that still ruled Peru in many ways, but that completely ruled Peru until 1968. That most of these people, they went to Paris, they went to Zurich, they went to Berlin, they went to London, they went to Madrid most of the year, and only came around Peru here and there. And these are the people that are supposed to represent Peru.
Yeah, you know, it's really important. Like you mentioned last time about evil, and like how everybody just becomes disciplined when he shows up, and I think that's exactly what Peru needs so they could come together. They need a new guy. I don't know if Petro.
I think you were gonna say Juan Guaido. I was like, no.
Yeah, I was like, no Juan Guaido. He's gone. Even he's fired by Biden. He's like, you're not even president. You never was.
Yeah. Yo, the worst insult came from Trump, though. When Trump said Juan Guaido was the Beto O'Rourke of Venezuela, I'm like, man, that's like, you just body this, man. You're savage. You know? It was wild.
He would be Beto O'Rourke if he had a campaign that fell 24/7, but the guy didn't even want to run. So.
He didn't even run. He's like, that's so sad because you can, isn't Beto O'Rourke so exchangeable with what's his other name, Pete Buttigieg, like whatever? These people are so like cookie cutter, bro. Juan Guaido, Pete Buttigieg, like the same bullshit.
But yeah, Pedro Castillo, like if he, he's in prison for 3 years, if he, could come out and lead, I think that would help gather people, like someone they need a leader. They need somebody to get people to stop being divided and come together. Um, but that is a thing in organizing culture. A lot of groups decide to have their own way, and it's hard for them to want to. That happens here in the States all the damn time. So there's just a hump that needs to be rectified.
No, it's true. We need a lot of humility. We need a lot of understanding that we are part of something great, and of being conscious of everything we do. For example, right here we're having a conversation, right? We're not on MSNBC, we're not on Joe Rogan's podcast, whatever. Okay, cool. But in the long term, what we're doing right now is a great thing. It's a thing that contributes to moving consciousness and to keeping us connected, to making us more human, right? To having a conversation that links something like Peru and the United States together by their common threads, and is able to reveal or elucidate the universal character of our revolutions, which is really one world revolution, as Comrade Mao Zedong would have put it. So I think that if we are humble and if we put in work, I think we're going to do a great thing. And when the great leader comes, the Kim Il-sung of America comes in, he's not going to come in saying, I am the Kim Il-sung of America, right? who's very much just humbly putting in their work. Gramsci tells the story of when he was in jail, which was, most of his, the second half of his life, that one of the comrades that shared a cell with him, when he first met him, he was disappointed because he said, wow, I thought the leader of the Italian communists would be like taller, or like when, I don't know if you ever read Reminiscence of Stalin, of Lenin by Stalin, but basically, it's basically a small speech that Stalin did in an anniversary of the death of Lenin. And when he talks about when he met Lenin, and he said that when he met Lenin, he imagined, right, that all the communists, they would be talking, whatever, and then suddenly somebody would say, attention, or like in Germany, they would say, Achtung, Achtung, and then everybody would be quiet, and then, down like the stairs, the great Lenin would come in, everybody would say, oh my God, like how Kim Il-sung gets applauded, that's what I mean. But he was already there. When Stalin got to the meeting, Lenin was already there. He was sitting in a corner talking to some guy. The end. He's in a corner talking to some other guy. The fuck is this? So, they have their ideas of who's gonna be what, but it's really just human beings. I don't know if you ever heard of the Prussian secret agents report on Karl Marx.
I've heard a little bit about it.
It's a very short read. I recommend it. The Prussian. Oh, definitely. The Prussian secret police are the direct predecessors to the Gestapo, right? The Gestapo were taken over, I think, by Göring. Göring made them into a national force, right? And then they were the inspiration for things like PIDE in Portugal and other terrorist, so-called intelligence services, which is really just a terrorist hit group. But the whole account of Karl Marx is very much about how he's super smart, but he's messy, right? He doesn't change his clothes in like a few days, but he's also brilliant. Like when the spy went to visit him, pretending to be a comrade, he said the shit was like dusty. They had to push away toys from a chair to let him sit. But then when they got to talking, he's like, "Yo, this guy's like a fucking genius, right?" So it's like that. It's like, Karl Marx, if you see him from far away, you're like, oh, that old grouchy man, whatever the fuck. Not grouchy, but like not that well kept. But then you talk to him, you're like, yo, this guy is the shit. So, we'll see. It'll be, I hope that the leadership of the United States, of the revolutions that may take place and should take place in the United States, reflect that, right? I don't want to see the daughter of a congressman. I don't want to see the famous ex-MMA fighter, ex-Fear Factor host, ex-apprentice host, whatever. How about somebody who just works for a living, a janitor? How about like in Venezuela, a bus driver, you know.
I was about to say like Nicolas Maduro, yeah, little bus
Like,
driver guy.
no, that'd be great. I wanna see that. I wanna see in Florida. You know, when I always think of revolution and socialism, I do think in the terms of Florida. Now, that might not be the best way to put it, whatever, but in my direct context, it's always Florida. So I'm thinking like, bro, who's out here busting their ass in Florida the most? Yo, the people that work in the sugar cane fields, and the people that work in the Immokalee picking your food. Can we get some fruit pickers to lead the revolution? Because I trust their ass more. Because I know they're hardworking. I know they're honest. I know that they have integrity, right? Whereas, like, a lot of these liberals, I don't know what you're on, you know?
They'll flip any second and become war criminals.
They'll switch on you. They're on some Trotsky shit.
Yeah. Oh, man, we're running out of time. But this was...
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I know you probably...
No, you're fine. You're fine. This was absolutely great. Love having you on, comrade, because this is good. We literally just had a very good conversation about revolutionary things, and I think there's a lot that people could grasp from our exchange. I need a cough button like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, no, I feel, one thing that I will say about the whole Peruvian situation. And this is something that the Peruvian movement has to develop. And again, the Peruvian movement, right? Like, there's only so many organizations, and most of them are caviar-led, But what we should do, and it's something that I'm going to propose in one of our meetings, is we really need to target the providers of weaponry for the Peruvian armed forces and police forces. I know that Canada has a bunch of companies that are indeed providing them with those weapons of lethal and non-lethal, but really lethal ammunition. So it's something that we have to work on, and I encourage people again to stay informed. And if you have any local branch of, let's say, G4S or Lockheed Martin or even other minor company, what's the name of this, Smith & Wesson, whatever, research who they're providing weapons to, like really informed on that, because I can't drive to, where is it, Dallas, Texas, right? I'm just going to be real. But if you live in Dallas, Texas, investigate that a little bit.
Yeah. And expose them, like every time, for instance, when the Marines have like is it Coast Guard? Yeah, it's Coast Guard. Whenever the Coast Guard have a graduation, we always show up and protest the speaker, because the speaker's always a goddamn war criminal. Like last time they had fucking Bolton. Like, I'm like, oh, hell no. We got to let these people know that this man literally was the architect of murdering like almost 1 million people in the Middle East. Like, we can't let that go. No. So
it's like with Bush. Remember when Bush made that mistake? He said, something invade Ukraine.
Right.
These people are terrible. John Bolton is running for president, which is the funniest shit too. No, like
Pompeo. Jesus.
This is the only part where I like Donald Trump.
Oh,
that he's going to destroy Ron DeSantis, John Bolton, Mike Pence.
This is going to snitch everything.
What is this? Some other Republican piece of shit.
Nikki Haley.
That's one thing that I like about Trump is on stage. On stage, he's just slaughtering Republicans and Democrats. I love that. That's my view.
That's something to look for. I'm at my popcorn. You know what I mean? And I wish it was like back in the day where it was like, you had a whole hour and then you'd go into a session and then come back for another hour, because they don't tell her how much he would just rail on them for that whole. It would be torture to stand next to that man and debate for an hour, to then come back, debate again for an hour. And he's just killing you. He's killing you. You're just like, dude, this is a roast.
And you take the jokes that Trump makes and you can just use them. Like when he called Marco Rubio Little Marco. Bro, anybody could call him that. Maduro could be like, oh, hey, Little Marco. You gotta use it. You gotta take that shit. I be calling Ron DeSantis. I'm like, oh yeah, Ron DeSantimonious, or
Ron DeSantis.
The biggest piece was this. Check out. So all mask mandates really ended in Florida by the end of 2020. In fact, Ron DeSantis is looking for a law that would make mask mandates illegal in Florida, right? So he was, opposed to a lot of stuff. He even persecuted legally this person that was exposing the real numbers of people that were getting infected and were even dying from coronavirus in the state of Florida. So you have this guy, Ron DeSantis, right, who's going against mask mandates, who is, I don't think he said much about the vaccine. I'm not sure. But he wanted to be on this like rightist, populist, slant when it came to coronavirus, right? That was part of his image. And then Donald Trump came in and called them lockdown Ron. And that was it. The end. So all the rhetoric, all the bills, all the resolutions, all the ads, all the speeches, the end. Yeah, it was all for naught. Because now you're locked down Ron. You're like, to the Trump base, you're like Xi Jinping or some shit.
Right.
Really, this is like the president of China right now to them. So I'm like, yeah, you pretty much lost, And
Right.
that's the only thing that I like about Trump, how he just slaughters politicians.
He's a funny guy. I'm not gonna lie. He would have been a great comedian. Like,
yeah, he would have been. I don't know. Like, it's hard to. It's almost idealist or utopian, if you will, to think of Trump as, if he would have been a revolutionary or something. You know what I'm saying?
Wild.
You know what I'm saying? He would have been just going off on that. I think of my grandma. So my paternal grandma, I'm not gonna cap. She was like she's I love her. She's she raised my father. She raised my uncles and aunts. But she'll cuss you out real quick. I remember I brought this friend home one time. Yo, she got cussed the fuck out by my grandma. I was like, Grandma, yeah. But whenever I confront Zionists or gusanos or Fujimoristas, I channel my grandma. I'm channeling my grandma. I remember one time I was outside of APAC in DC. We're protesting outside. Bro, I went off on the Zionist. This guy, I'm talking about, he's wearing like a $5,000 suit, very well dressed, not a lumpen, not a gusano. Gusano is like a lumpen. This guy is like a bourgeois. Bro, this guy lost his fucking mind, bro. He charged me. The police literally had to grab him to stop him. Just because I was channeling my grandmother, bro. I was like, oh, he can't even look at me. He can't even look at me. Bro, this guy fucking lost it, So you gotta channel your ancestors sometimes, when you're fighting these fuckers, even their traits that were not the best in life, after they're passing, it becomes just a tool of the revolution,
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a great way to end it, channeling the ancestors, because God knows people need to do that sometimes.
Definitely. Let me ask you a question. I know we gotta go, and I have to I gotta go pick up a friend like an hour from here, just a bit. How did you feel about I've been promoting the anti-war rally coming up on the 18th in DC, and I hope that everybody goes there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Friends that are going to be there, that are taking transportation. Some teachers, communist teachers from Broward County, they're headed to DC this 18th. Right. What did you think, though, of the Rage Against the War Machine protests? You're like, oh shit. You're lost transmission. I'm like, it's a little dicey, right? It's a little dicey.
So listen, there's going to be some progressive and socialist people that I have met that went to that rally, and I have had them on my show and all this stuff. So if they hear this, they're probably going to be mad about what I'm about to say.
Oh shit! Okay, snap. Okay.
I have explained it to Tommy Nation. He knows. Tommy, we had the conversation the last episode we did with Unsavory Politics, so he knows, and that's all I care about. My issue was, as a PSL member, we are very, very principled in anti-war and anti-U.S. imperialism. So we do not want to organize with people, which I don't want to name them, the ones that spoke at that rally, that has been politicians in the past. I don't
like Tulsi Gabbard or whatever.
I don't want to name them, but
Okay.
they have voted for you imperialist wars, but now they want to go and straight up, oppose this war. And I question why they want to oppose this war when they have voted and supported other bloodshed. That's just my personal feeling.
Yeah.
I don't want, so I automatically was like, I don't know how I feel about this when I learned about who was organizing it. I'm glad Jimmy Dore got to speak. I'm glad there was a lot of other leftists that was there that got to speak. But I felt like it was kind of a contradiction because we need to be principled as socialists and not only oppose war, but also oppose imperialism. And I don't think they fully understood that imperialism is a huge part of the problem with the people that, was a part of the rally. And it was big. Sammy Sabes was there. A lot of people that are like really well known was there within the progressive and leftist movement. And I supported the idea of speaking out to end this war and want peace. But I felt like it was contradictory with the actors that were on the right involved. That's how I felt. And the PSL, my party, they felt the same way before I even had a conversation. So I was like, oh well, we're all just like this. We're going to take this stance. We're not going to say I didn't put anything out. I didn't say I hated it. I didn't say I don't support it. I didn't put any critiques out. I kept my mouth shut.
Oh yeah. I've seen the how can I put it, the rhetoric, the discourse, the polemics, right? And I have friends there too. Right. We're in a complex situation, it might be, because, for example, I think of when Trotsky was given the power, if you will, to lead the delegation to negotiate with Germany for what became the Brest-Litovsk peace during the end of World War I. The permission said, we give permission to Comrade Trotsky to accept help from the French bandits against the German bandits. Like, it was clear, like, these are all assholes, right?
Right.
And yet, you got to make a deal. You got to cut a deal. And the same attitude, you could say, was taken in the Molotov-Ribbentrop, pact, right? Which is, hey, listen, guys, you're Nazis, we're communists, but like, let's not fuck around and get ourselves in a really bad position. And so that's a position of like survival, right? Yo, we gotta make this shit happen.
Right.
I think in the US, we're not gonna die if like all of Ukraine dies. Like it's just gonna stay there. The war is not gonna advance to America, whatever. And so we are in a place where we do have a certain, and I hate these terms. This is terrible postmodernist terms. A certain level of privilege, and I don't like to talk like that. To be like, yo, you know what? We got to work with this group as opposed to that group, because this group has bad politics and we have good politics. So let's work with people that have good politics. And in theory, that will allow us to take the correct course in our movement, because we're all led by good politics or good ideology, correct ideology. And so I think that when we're talking about somebody, that every day in the United States, or not every day, but at least once a week, a person has to get their feet amputated because of preventable diseases and lack of healthcare, like literally. So if you think right now, you, Jamar, you're gonna lose your legs tomorrow. There's only one way out.
Yeah.
You gotta take a picture with a neo-Nazi.
Oh shit!
It's a good chance you're gonna be like, man, take this picture. All right, oof, I got my life. Bro. Oh yeah, hey, fuck you, man, fuck you. I don't like you, whatever. Fuck Nazism, but I got my legs. And when I think about that, or something, let's say a young girl who, got pregnant unintentionally and she needs to get an abortion, somebody be like, listen, you can get an abortion, but you got to take a picture with, I don't know, Jordan Peterson or some shit. You might be like, man, all right, Jordan Peterson, here's a picture. All right, now I can get my abortion. And so the way, or or a parent, right, that is about to have to be evicted with their kids, or once you start thinking on those terms, you're like, fuck, like I do have to get shit like popping right away. And so why do I mention all these things? Because things seem to be a little bit, separated from Ukraine. Again, the war is over there, it's not here. But it would seem to me that a really successful anti-imperialist movement will connect the anti-imperialist struggle with struggles here at home, right? The struggles here at home. If you're a mother whose son was killed by the police, what wouldn't you do to have your son back? What wouldn't you do? Right. And so in that context, it seems to me that attitude, maybe not, with limits, right? We don't want to run into opportunism or support far-right ideas. But in that context, I see the urgency to work with certain people that have sketchy politics. There's people that are unfair to PSL, right? There's people that will tell you, hey, PSL is just trying to be the bosses of the movement.
Oh yeah, I hear that all
like
the
if you work outside of them, boy, you ain't shit, according to PSL. But if you work with them, you're cool.
Yeah.
And so it's unfair to have that position, right? Because even if PSL were like that, even if PSL had a secret document, if you don't work with us, you ain't shit. You work with PSL. You still should work with the Answered Coalition. You still should defend the People's Forum. The People's Forum gets attacked by gusanos in Miami. Nobody in Miami knows what the fuck the People's Forum is, but it gets attacked anyway. So even if all those things were true, you should still defend the People's Forum. You should still support the Answered Coalition. You should still work with PSL and whatever can be worked with, because it's not about, in my view, lining up all the ducks. It's about getting what you need to get done ASAP, imperfectly, inefficiently at points, but moving forward and getting better through it and getting more effective through it. That's the way I see it, but we'll see. History will be the judge.
No, I agree with you, because I'm happy about how big the message got across. Very happy about that, because it did. It got across. And it's a part of a movement of, especially with the Ukraine war, a lot of Americans, when you see the polls, they are starting to question what makes them so special. Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we dumping all this money into here? We spent $2 trillion in Afghanistan for 20 years. So it's like, I'm glad that it's happening rapidly. You could see the change. People are starting to question a lot faster than they were questioning 20 years ago with Afghanistan.
Yeah.
They were sold on there's terrorists there. So, 9/11, it was a perfect excuse. But they don't have a perfect excuse for Ukraine besides demonizing Russia. And then people are thinking like, well, dude, it's been a year now. Russia's still there, $100 billion. What are we doing? And I'm glad that's happening. So I respect that that rally went down.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying. My criticisms were just about the right wing element, and I get what you're saying. I agree. I do agree. But it was really difficult when you see, like, I understood the criticism, because they dropped an article on this as well too from the Black Agenda that did an article.
Black Alliance for Peace dropped an article, but they were Black Alliance for Peace. They dropped an article before, like, the whole thing. I feel like it was just a little. How can I put it? It's a little too harsh. It's a little.
It was harsh.
And you can have harsh, like, discourse. I was me and some comrades that actually one of them had gone to this rally. We were having, we're just kind of eating, drinking, whatever, drinking moderately in this Haitian spot in Miami, just like a week ago. And one of the comments was like, man, I didn't see any Black or indigenous leadership in that rally. And everybody was like, yeah, it doesn't seem like it. But then somebody went off. Somebody said, okay, and what does that mean? Like, okay, and what does that mean? Like, and I was like, like, there's like ups and downs to this, right? Like, because some people might be like, was it intentional? Was it like a real racist, like, yo, man, hey, make sure no Black or indigenous people get up on the stage? Or was it these people working with their own circles? Look, if LaRouche movement, for example, says, oh, we're not going to work with PSL, then fuck LaRouche movement. But if LaRouche movement says, hey, we are willing to work with the Answer Coalition, I think it would not be useful to then push away LaRouche. I think it would be useful to pull them in, call them in, if you will, and challenge their ideas through common struggle, right? Unity through struggle, and then you might get some, white communists that used to be LaRouches or something. I don't know.
I mean, look, we had Noam Chomsky literally speak at like a few of our big national events. So
yeah,
there's a lot of things that Noam Chomsky has said that I agree with, but there's also a lot of things that Noam Chomsky has said that I disagree with. So if we could get somebody like Noam Chomsky to come on and stuff like that, I can see. But it has to be. We also have a leadership, and we have to abide by the leadership because it's called Democratic Central.
Oh yeah.
So but so that's why I stayed quiet and didn't say nothing about it, because I appreciated the type of attention it was getting and all that stuff.
Right.
Even though I feel like maybe I was incorrect in my criticism so hard, like how BAP did it, but it literally still got the job done in a positive way. So I'm gonna give it up to the right wingers on that side for actually, looking like they were on the actual left.
Yeah,
compared to the squad, and
they were to the left of the squad. They were left to goddamn near everybody in Congress.
Right.
They were to the left of damn. Let me drop a bomb and then we should go because it's just like spicy. This is like a tacky / hot Cheeto / Indian spice shit going on. Look, check this out. They were to the left of DSA. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Like they would say in Miami, se acabó. The end. They were to the left of the DSA. Yeah.
Blank period, yeah. On my Black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100. Ayy, if you don't like it, then fuck it. Ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just